In the year 1066, England stood at a moment of profound uncertainty. It was a kingdom shaped by centuries of Anglo-Saxon rule, a political culture grounded in kinship networks, oath-taking, and negotiated authority between king and elite. Royal power was significant, yet not absolute. English kings governed in consultation with leading nobles and bishops in an assembly known as the Witan. Authority depended as much on recognition and consensus as on hereditary claim. London was among the most economically significant cities in England and increasingly its foremost commercial hub. Positioned along the River Thames, it functioned as a vital artery linking England to Scandinavia and continental Europe. Timber houses lined narrow streets. Markets bustled with wool, iron, wine, grain, and imported goods. By contemporary standards, the city was wealthy, connected, and politically influential. At nearby Westminster, royal authority and ecclesiastical influence converged. The abbey symbolized the close relationship between monarchy and church. Structurally, the kingdom appeared stable. That stability, however, depended heavily on the person of the king. In January 1066, King Edward the Confessor died without a direct heir. The absence of a clear successor created a succession crisis. In 11th century Europe, dynastic legitimacy was rarely straightforward. Bloodline, oath, election, and military power all functioned as competing sources of authority. Harold Godwinson, Earl of Wessex, and the most powerful noble in England, was crowned king with the support of the Witan. His elevation followed established Anglo-Saxon precedent. Kingship was not strictly hereditary, but required recognition by the kingdom's leading men. Yet across the English Channel, William, Duke of Normandy, rejected Harold's claim.
The king is crowned, my duke.
William asserted that Edward had promised him the throne during Edward's years in exile within the Norman sphere. Norman sources further claimed that Harold had sworn a sacred oath to support William's succession,
Do not fail me.
a claim still debated among historians. Whether this oath was freely given or made under constraint remains uncertain. What is clear is that William considered Harold's coronation illegitimate. A third claimant soon emerged. Harald Hardrada, King of Norway, invoked earlier Scandinavian agreements and asserted his own right to the English crown. In September 1066, he launched an invasion of northern England with a fleet of longships. Hardrada's forces defeated an English army near York, increasing the urgency of Harold's response. England now faced simultaneous threats. Harold marched his army nearly 200 miles north and confronted Hardrada at the Battle of Stamford Bridge. The English victory was decisive. Hardrada was killed, and the Norwegian invasion collapsed. Yet triumph came at a cost. Harold's forces were fatigued from rapid movement and sustained combat. Within days, word arrived that William of Normandy had landed on the southern coast near Pevensey. Harold turned south immediately. His army, already exhausted, undertook another forced march. An impressive logistical effort, yet also a strategic risk. William, meanwhile, acted deliberately. He secured fortified coastal positions, ensured supply lines, and prepared his combined force of infantry, cavalry, and archers. The Norman army represented a more flexible military system than the predominantly infantry-based English host. On October 14th, 1066, dawn broke over the ridge north of Hastings as two armies prepared to decide the fate of a kingdom. Along the crest of the hill, King Harald Godwinson drew up his men in a dense shield wall, a living barricade of oak and iron. Shoulder to shoulder, axes and spears bristling, the English stood firm. Below them, the forces of William the Conqueror advanced in waves. Again and again, the Normans charged. Infantry pressed upward. Arrows darkened the sky. Cavalry crashed against the unbroken wall of shields. For hours, the English line held. But war is as much endurance as courage. As the day waned, the struggle grew chaotic. The famous scene in the Bayeux tapestry shows Harold struck in the eye by an arrow, a moment frozen in thread. Yet, whether felled by missile or blade, what followed is beyond dispute. Harold fell, and with him fell the unity of the English defence. By nightfall, the shield wall had shattered. William stood victorious upon the field, and the road to the English crown lay open. Yet conquest was not immediate. London, the kingdom's economic and symbolic centre, remained outside Norman control. Rather than storm the city directly, William advanced strategically, consolidating alliances and demonstrating military strength. By isolating London and signalling the cost of resistance, he encouraged negotiation. Eventually, English leaders recognized the altered balance of power. On Christmas Day 1066, William was crowned King of England in Westminster Abbey. Contemporary chroniclers describe tension during the ceremony. Shouts of acclamation inside the abbey were reportedly misinterpreted by Norman guards outside as signs of rebellion. Fires broke out amid confusion. To consolidate power, William acted swiftly. Across England, timber, motte and bailey castles were constructed to command towns and strategic routes. In London, a fortress established soon after 1066 eventually developed into the White Tower. Stone construction likely began in the late 1070s, using imported Caen limestone from Normandy. Rising above the Thames, it functioned both as a military stronghold and as a visible assertion of Norman permanence. Landholding patterns shifted dramatically. Estates were confiscated from Anglo-Saxon nobles and redistributed to Norman lords. A new aristocracy emerged, whose authority derived directly from the king. In 1086, William commissioned the Domesday Book, a comprehensive survey of land, resources, and taxable wealth. The survey strengthened centralized governance. Norman French became the language of the royal court and elite administration, while Old English persisted among the broader population. Over the following centuries, their interaction contributed to the emergence of Middle English. Romanesque stone cathedrals and castles increasingly replaced earlier timber structures. Westminster developed into a durable centre of royal government. Trade connections with continental Europe intensified under Norman rule. London's commercial and political importance continued to grow. The events of 1066 marked a structural transformation in English history. And at the centre of that transformation stood London, adapting, expanding, and emerging as the enduring seat of a kingdom redefined by conquest.